Welcome to your deep dive. Today, we're going to be cracking open the Ethereum white paper.
Ooh,
It
exciting.
is exciting. We have expert speaker here to kind of walk us through some of the big ideas.
Absolutely happy to be here.
And this paper, it's from 2014, written by a then 19-year-old Vitalik Buterin, which is just mind-blowing.
It really is. It's one of those things, when you first read it, you kind of have to pick your jaw up off the floor.
Yeah, like 19, I was just worried about what kind of pizza I was going to order. Like, this is next level stuff.
Absolutely.
So, okay, everybody always says Ethereum. This white paper, though, it's not just about a cryptocurrency, is it?
No, it's so much bigger than that.
Right.
I mean, think of it this way. Bitcoin kind of showed us that you could have a decentralized system that would track, who owns what digitally.
Right.
Buterin looked at that and basically said, we can do so much more with this.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So he starts with Bitcoin, this whole state transition system thing.
Right.
It's a little jargony for me. Can you break that down a little bit?
Yeah. So imagine like a giant digital spreadsheet that's shared across a huge network.
Okay,
And every time someone sends Bitcoin, it's like you're updating that spreadsheet.
right.
You're changing who has what.
Great.
And the blockchain is what makes sure that everyone's copy of that spreadsheet stays in sync and tamper-proof.
Right, the blockchain, the ingenuity behind it all.
Exactly.
So Buterin sees this system, and he's like, okay, we can use this for things beyond just money.
Exactly. He saw that there was some, people had tried to create digital cash before, things like B-money, which were really innovative for their time, but they still relied on some central authority.
Right, you needed someone to kind of like verify it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Bitcoin solved that problem with decentralization, but Buterin saw that there were limitations to what Bitcoin could do.
Interesting. Okay.
One of the big ones being that Bitcoin, the scripting language, the tools you use to actually build on top of it were very, very basic.
So it's like trying to build like a smartphone app with like just an old school calculator.
That's a perfect analogy.
Okay.
You can do some things,
Right.
but you're very limited in how creative you can be, and this is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Because Buterin lays out this whole vision for Ethereum, which is a platform with what's called a Turing-complete programming language.
Okay.
It's essentially like going from that clunky calculator to a full-blown coding studio.
Wow. Okay. So instead of just sending Bitcoin, you could program practically anything on Ethereum.
You got it. We're talking decentralized applications, complex financial tools, even new ways to structure entire organizations,
Wow.
all running on this global tamper-proof network.
Okay, my mind is already halfway blown here.
Yeah.
But before we go full-blown matrix, let's dig into some of the specific limitations of Bitcoin's scripting language
Sure.
that Buterin was addressing, because I want to understand the why behind Ethereum's how.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right, let's unpack some of these Bitcoin scripting limitations, because it seems like Buterin was very deliberate in kind of like calling these out. What was he getting at?
Yeah, he was really, kind of drawing a line in the sand and saying, Bitcoin showed us what was possible. But to really unlock the true potential of blockchain, you needed something more. You needed something more powerful, more flexible.
Oh.
And one of the biggest limitations that he pointed out was that Bitcoin's scripting language didn't have loops.
Okay, loops. Explain it to me like I'm 5, but with like a blockchain obsession.
Okay, so imagine you want to program a contract that'll automatically pay your rent every month.
Go.
In a normal programming language, you would use a loop, right?
Go ahead.
You'd tell the code, hey, do this thing every 30 days.
Right.
Bitcoin scripting, no loops.
Oh, wow.
You'd have to write out the instruction for every single month,
Really?
year after year.
Oh, my gosh.
Super clunky and inefficient.
Yeah, that's going to get really old really fast.
Yeah, exactly.
So loops equal automation. And automation equals huge potential, especially when we're talking about smart contracts.
Massive.
What were some of the other limitations that he was tackling?
Another big one was this idea of value blindness.
Value blindness. Okay.
Yeah, Bitcoin scripts couldn't actually interact with the amount of value that was being transferred.
Hold on. That seems like kind of a big deal.
Huge deal.
If you can't actually interact with the value on the blockchain, then what's the point of having smart contracts for like these financial tools?
Exactly. It really limited what you could do.
Right.
Like imagine trying to build a decentralized lending platform
Okay.
where the contract itself can't even see how much money is being lent out.
Oh, yeah.
That's a non-starter.
Yeah, for sure.
Ethereum changes that.
Okay, so we've got no loops, value blind. It's like we're trying to build a high-speed rail system, but we've only got like Hand tools?
Exactly.
What else is on the list here?
Okay, so this one's a little bit more subtle, but it's really important.
Okay.
Bitcoin scripts were stateless.
Stateless. What does that mean?
It means they couldn't remember anything from previous transactions.
Oh, wow.
It was like having a severe case of digital amnesia.
So every transaction was like a blank slate.
Pretty much.
There's no way to build on top of what happened before or track information over time.
Exactly. And that's a huge problem for so many potential applications.
Right.
Think about a decentralized organization
Okay.
where you need to keep track of like votes or memberships or any kind of like evolving information. Ethereum actually solves this with its account model, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Okay.
But there's one more limitation that I want to get to, and this one's kind of meta.
Okay.
Bitcoin scripts were blockchain blind.
Blockchain blind. What does that even mean?
It means that the scripts couldn't access information about the blockchain itself.
Okay.
Like they couldn't see what block they were in or look at the hashes of previous blocks.
So they were like operating in the dark.
Exactly.
Wow.
And that really limits the complexity of what you can build.
Right, because if you can't see the environment that you're working in, it's really hard to make something that's going to be effective.
Exactly.
Wow. So Buterin, he wasn't content with just like tweaking Bitcoin a little bit.
Right.
He wanted to build something totally new that addressed all of these like fundamental limitations head on.
He had a much bigger vision, and one of the most elegant solutions that he came up with was Ethereum's account model and how those accounts interact.
Okay, I got to hear more about this account model.
Oh,
Right, you got to tell me more about this account model because I'm super curious.
So imagine this Ethereum actually has two different types of accounts.
Okay.
First, you have the kind that we're used to, these externally owned accounts.
Right.
They're controlled by individuals with their private keys, you know, like our digital wallets.
Right, like how we interact with pretty much every cryptocurrency out there.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's one type. What's the second?
The second type is where things get really wild.
Okay.
These are called contract accounts.
Contract accounts.
And they're not controlled by a person. They're controlled by code, by the smart contracts themselves.
Hold on. So the contracts are like independent entities on the network.
Exactly.
They have their own accounts.
They have their own balance. They can send and receive funds. It's
Wow.
like giving these programs a life of their own.
That's crazy. And they can interact with each other.
Yeah, they communicate through what are called messages.
Messages, so like emails for smart contracts.
Kind of like that, but way cooler.
Okay.
These messages can actually carry data, and they can trigger actions in other contracts.
Okay.
So think of it this way. You send a message to a decentralized lending platform's contract,
Okay.
and you say, hey, I want to borrow some funds.
Right.
That contract interacts with your account, verifies your collateral, and boom, loan processed.
Wow.
All on the blockchain, no middleman needed.
So we're not just talking about automating payments here. We're
You're
talking
right.
about automating entire processes.
Exactly. And because these contract accounts can interact with each other, you get these really complex chain reactions of actions and events, all driven by code.
Wow.
All transparent and all unstoppable.
It's like he created a digital city
Right.
with these like autonomous programs just interacting and building on top of each other.
It's a beautiful thing.
It really is. And this reminds me, he also talks about Ethereum's state transition function,
Right.
which is basically like how the entire system changes with each transaction.
Yeah, it's kind of the nuts and bolts of how it all works.
Right. And he compares it to Bitcoin, but says there's a really important difference.
He does, and this is where the white paper gets a little technical.
Okay.
But basically, Buterin explains that Ethereum blocks don't just store transactions like Bitcoin does.
Oh.
They actually store the most recent state of every single account on the network.
Wow. That sounds like a lot of data to keep track of.
It is a lot of data.
Isn't that incredibly inefficient?
It would be if they did it the old-fashioned way.
Okay.
But Buterin proposed this really elegant solution using this special type of data structure called a Patricia tree?
A Patricia tree.
Yeah, you probably don't need to know the technical details.
Okay.
But basically, these trees are organized in a way that you only need to update a tiny little branch with each change.
Okay.
You don't have to rewrite the entire tree.
So it's like, I don't know, editing a paragraph in a massive encyclopedia instead of having to rewrite the whole thing every time you make a change.
That's a great way to put it. And this is huge because it means that Ethereum's full nodes,
Okay.
the computers that are actually like storing the blockchain,
Right.
They don't need to store the entire transaction history
Oh, wow.
like Bitcoin nodes do.
Interesting.
So it's much more efficient. And in the long run, it makes Ethereum much more scalable.
Scalability, the holy grail of blockchain.
Exactly. And even with all this innovation,
Yeah.
Buterin didn't shy away from the tough questions.
Yeah.
He actually dedicated a whole section of the white paper to this problem of mining centralization.
Right, because if one entity controls the majority of the network's computing power, that could be really bad.
Oh, yeah. They could essentially like rewrite the rules of the system.
Right.
And that completely undermines the whole idea of decentralization.
So how do you solve that problem?
Well, Buterin proposed a couple of things. Okay. First, he introduced this idea of a new mining algorithm.
Oh.
One that wouldn't give an unfair advantage to people who had specialized mining hardware.
So no more like massive energy-hungry mining farms.
Ideally, no.
Okay.
He wanted to level the playing field so that anyone with a computer could participate in securing the network.
That makes a lot of sense.
And then to further decentralize things,
Yeah.
he proposed this idea of requiring miners to actually hold a stake in the network,
Okay.
which later became known as proof of stake.
Right.
And this is really clever because it means that if you're a bad actor and you try to cheat the system,
Yeah.
you risk losing your stake.
Right. So there's a real incentive to play by the rules.
Exactly. It aligns the incentives of the entire network.
Wow. It's really amazing, like he thought of everything.
He really did lay the groundwork for a very robust, decentralized future. And I think it's important to remember that this was just the beginning.
Right.
This white paper, it wasn't meant to be like the final word on blockchain technology.
Yeah.
It was a call to action. It was an invitation for developers around the world to come and build on this new foundation.
Right. To kind of like take the ball and run with it.
Exactly. To experiment, to unleash their creativity, and to really see what this technology could do.
And unleash they did.
Yeah.
It's incredible to think about how much innovation has come out of this one document.
Absolutely. Everything from decentralized finance to NFTs to DAOs. None of this would be possible without the vision that was outlined in this white paper.
It really is remarkable, and I think it's a testament to the power of open source technology.
It is.
When you get brilliant minds coming together, collaborating towards a common goal, incredible things can happen.
Absolutely. And it shows you the power of ideas. Right? This one document sparked a whole revolution.
It did indeed. And there you have it, folks. Your deep dive into the Ethereum white paper.
Hope you enjoyed it.
We explored the limitations of existing blockchain technology. We unpacked Buterin's really elegant solutions, and we touched on just the immense potential that this technology holds.
It's huge.
It is huge. So the next time that you hear about some groundbreaking new decentralized application where it all started with this one visionary document.
It all goes back to the white paper.
It does. And who knows, maybe you'll be inspired to build the next big thing on the Ethereum blockchain.